Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. We are here. It's a lot better day today. It's feeling like already. Although yesterday we were feeling good in the morning, Steve, until the tweets started coming fast and furious. How are you doing today, my man?
Yeah, look, a couple days ago, I called the bottom. I said it. There's so many people out there that are so nervous and scared. Oh, you shouldn't call the bottom. You'll never know where the bottom is. You know what? Those of us who have been trading for 34 years, we kind of do know where the bottoms are. We know where capitulation is. We know where the traders are. It's a mechanical machine. We talked about this the last 3 days. And guess what? Many people bought that Tesla, like I said. Look, you stick a Tesla on the White House lawn, you can expect to see a stock price jump, right? You talk about it. Trump talked quite heavily about it, right? About how he liked the car, and all of a sudden, guess what happens? The price is now almost 12% in the last few days. That's what I'm talking about, right? I think for me that it's all about two things right now. It's all about Trump's tweets and what he's saying, right? And the second thing is whether or not how the world responds to him, not just the tariffs, but everything, right? And the charts are great. I love it. I've been calling it pearl clutching. Don't pearl clutch your charts, because right now your charts don't mean anything, considering that news, and I am saying it, the pun intended, news trumps charts.
Yep.
But
right now,
right now, look, CPI fell. So guess what? The stock went up. Prices are going down. The market's good. This whole sell-off was a little bit premature and a little silly, and I take advantage of it, as I always say.
Yep, can't argue there. Tick took off right after that. Still staying positive here, about 230. Nice move on advanced decline up to 2,700. It had been sitting at like 200. So nice little jump up there. VIX, which you said would come down, has come down nicely here. 25.39 from those highs, almost at 30 we hit yesterday. So looking good there. QQQ up about 1.7% here as we get, about 30 minutes from the start. I will say it has come down a little bit since that initial, CPI numbers coming out. So we are seeing a little bit of profit taking. I do expect to see that off the open here. A lot of people that bought stuff yesterday with some of them with actually a hope and a prayer, so to speak, are going to turn out in the right way. So they are going to jump out of those trades. So be careful there. Some of the big leaders so far, App Lovin up about 11.34. These are S&P and NASDAQ 100, S&P 500, NASDAQ 100. Biggest leaders so far, App Lovin up about 11.29%. SMCI up 8.64. And then we get into the big boys, Palantir, Tesla, Intel, Nvidia, all of them moving up nicely. Chips are really moving to the upside today. Marvell up 4.2, as you know, one of my favorites there. A lot more talk on Intel, Steve. We talked about them yesterday. More talk about potential takeover here in investment, especially from TSM and Nvidia. So a lot of talk there. They're up about 7.8% on that news. AMD is up on that news.
We talked about it yesterday. I said, look, this is exactly what's happening, right? As rates are coming down, there's big money out there. I don't know how else to explain this, right? It's just as my dad always says, common sense, right? Common sense runs the markets. You may not think that, but it does, because when you think about it, when the people, the bigger prevailing heads, the ones that have the hedge funds and the buy and sell sides, the markets, they are watching the markets in a way that we really aren't. We're watching the volume and the movements. But I'm telling you, in the overall arching theme here has definitely got to be inflation rate and rates, period. Keep your eye on the 10 and 2s. You'll know exactly where we're going, right? If you can borrow more money, then you're gonna be able to spend more money, and you're gonna be able to buy bigger products, right? Like companies like Intel. We talked about that yesterday, right? Look at Krispy Kreme. This is a company that could possibly get bought out by Warren Buffett shaking his jeans out, right? And saying, okay, there's some change fell out, right? That's what I mean. And we killed it. We nailed it.
Yeah, so DXY has jumped up a little bit here, so we got to be careful a little bit here watching this morning. It was trading down about 103.35 before the news from CPI. You can see how quickly it's moved to the upside, and it is holding up pretty well so far. So the news there has that working. It is moving the 10-year and the 30-year both to the upside also here. So, we start to get back into the battle, though, Steve. Does this mean the Fed doesn't cut rates?
No, I think the Fed cuts rates. My goodness, the Fed is getting a little nervous. I mean, Christine Lagarde herself from the EU, ECB, was really nervous. She said, we have some serious headwinds. Yeah, I think the whole world's going to be cutting rates. We see what happens when the rates go down. We see what happens. So the Fed is thinking about that. The Fed said the only thing keeping them from cutting rates was inflation. Okay, well, CPI just showed you today that's not that bad. It's actually coming down. It actually was a different number. That's why you're seeing the markets go up, because there's a bigger picture now of the Fed actually cutting rates. And you know what? That's why we're seeing this market the way that we are. Look at the VIX right now, 25.30. We were at 30 yesterday. You know, if you were with me on those VIX puts today, you are like literally smiling all the way to the bank today. So, and with Tesla up, you won both ways. We won both ways on this. I'm very happy. I'm still long NVIDIA, as everybody here knows. I think the world of NVIDIA here is still good, and nothing has changed. My thesis has not changed on NVIDIA, and we're about to be up. Gosh, I don't even know how much. Another 5. Gosh, I don't even see it here. Look at that. NVIDIA up almost 5% today. So up almost $5. Look, the thesis hasn't changed. And guess what? This sell-off was premature. It was silly. It was some profit taking. I also think a lot of the selling also could have been from tax selling too, as well, taking some profits as well. But to me, honestly, this is a big win. If everybody's paying attention and watching our show, you're absolutely crushed it the last couple of days.
Yep. So we'll see if we can continue to get it. Yesterday, we had a great start to the day before the, talk of 100% taxes on cars and the fact that he was going to destroy the auto industry in Canada sort of put the market in a downspin. So again, make sure you're listening to the news. Maybe some of these economic advisors he's got in the White House telling him, hey, let's cut the rhetoric a little bit because we need these markets to get a little bit of breathing room here. So it is moving up nicely today here as we get ready for the open. Another thing that does have people moving more positive too, House did pass the spending bill. It's going to have a lot tougher time in the Senate. Quite honestly, right now, it does not have the votes. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the good news there is it did get through the House already. And I do think that's what people want to see also, right? We want to see that there's a budget in place. People want the economic data to be available and transparent so they can move forward. Everything right now is sort of behind closed doors. So as we get some transparency there, we'll continue to see, hopefully move up here today. As we said, Mag 7 tremendously to the upside. Microsoft and Apple sort of the two laggards that aren't up at least 1 percentage point so far. Bitcoin back up towards 84,000. So we are, what we are seeing too, Steve, it shows that a lot of this is the consumer sentiment, right? Because we're seeing all of the markets go up in tandem. So we're seeing DXY go up. We're seeing stocks go up. We're seeing gold go up. We're seeing Bitcoin going up. What does that mean? It means exactly maybe the capitulation that we've seen over the last couple of days was hopefully that final capitulation that those institutional investors that have had money sitting on the sidelines were waiting for, and they're jumping in with both hands, and we can start to get back into a better market to the upside. But again, in oil going up, like I said, what I've noticed today is that pretty much everything except for natural gas is moving to the upside, right?
Yeah, I mean, natural gas is very simple. It's not as cold out there anymore. So, and you're not seeing as much of a rhetoric talk out of Ukraine now. Things are changing a little bit. So there's a lot going on here.
Breaking news out of Russia. Russia's central bank considering allowing domestic investors to buy Bitcoin and crypto.
There you go.
Breaking across now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a
Steve,
different
one
day
thing I wanted to talk a little bit about before we really get going into the other stuff, we got a few minutes here, is an article I was reading that was talking about what you have been discussing for weeks, that this volatility that's been terrible for the market's been terrible for a different way, and the surge in option trading. And while this doesn't look too bad, when you say, okay, people are buying options in the S&P 500, Howard, why is that a problem? 4.8 million on Monday, 50% more than a normal day. Why is that a problem? This next one that's coming across the bottom here, the zero DTEs, 56% of the total S&P 500 option activity in February was zero DTEs. 56%. You've been saying it here, Steve. It is just insane, and what it is it seems to be investors' response to the uncertainty in the markets. So they're gambling basically on lotto plays in the options and zero DTEs. So again, what you've been talking about for weeks and months, we're seeing mainstream media now start to cover.
I've always said when I teach in the markets that this market is the greatest wealth creator in history. There's nothing in the world that's created more wealth in history than the markets. Why? Because one simple reason: it's greed. I mean, greed is a good thing, actually. But greed can also kill if it's too much of a good thing. I love baseball, but watching baseball every single day, all the time, every day would be a bad thing, right? I mean, I need to work. I need to do things, right? It's not smart. Too much of anything is bad. And when you see this is turning it into a casino, and it's not good. And because of that, we're seeing, I think I saw something like 87% of retail traders have now lost money on zero DTE.
Yeah.
I think higher now, actually. And I don't want to see that, right? We're here to teach people how to actually grow wealth and make money, that they live a much better lifestyle than how much money can they make today so that they can go party on Friday. That's not what I'm trying to do, right? I do that. I trade all the time, right? Tesla, Nvidia, and all the things I'm doing. But here we're trying to help create wealth. And zero DTEs is the biggest destruction of wealth so far in history. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's true. And it's happening at an alarming rate. And when you let the wolves in the hen house, when people are buying heavy calls to retail, you have to understand the market is a machine. I said this the last 3 days straight. It does not care about you. And when there's a buyer, there's a seller somewhere, right? So someone is selling. And usually if someone can take all that zero DTE, it's because the big boys are creating that liquidity so that you can make that trade, so they can take your position. What I don't want to see now is covered calls and covered positions on zero DTEs. That would be even worse, because then you're destroying your actual shares that you own too, right? Not only are they destroying your position, but they're also taking your shares from you. So that would be a big wealth transfer that we don't want to see, right? But nope, I think, I've been harping about it. Now mainstream media is picking it up. So here we are, and I'm glad to see that. So yeah.
Also saw, Steve, something that you talk about a lot is, when it comes to healthcare, is some interesting companies here. Roche is got a $5.3 billion weight loss deal out there. And what it was is Zealand Pharma, which is a smaller company that you've talked about, had a breakthrough that's rivaling what we've seen from Novo, Nordisk, and the others. So Roche is going to take that to the market. It's called petrolitide. It's a once weekly injection similar to the GLP-1 receptors, but designed to offer better tolerability and lean muscle preservation. So be interesting to see more about this, but definitely a big play for Roche here. They're paying $1.65 billion in cash for it, 1.2 in development milestones, 2.4 billion in sales milestones. So big move here in the drug industry. And I did see that Novo Nordisk was down earlier on the news. Everything's sort of moving up now, so I'm wondering.
So I will say this much with Roche.
No, they're still down 5%.
Yeah, Roche is a great company. They understand semaglutides and in the peptide world. So when you're looking at it from that perspective, the one shot. Okay, you don't have the muscle mass loss that you're seeing now with Wegovy and Ozempic and Zepbound. I've said this before. Eli Lilly is not going to get hit on this because they are stockpiling the pill. They're building a pill.
They were up on the news, I believe. Let's see. Now they're down 1.26. They had actually been up on the news, quite frankly, because I think it's more about that this is going to wipe out Novo Nordisk. A lot of people are sort of betting on that. If you looked, I just had Novo up, which is NVO for those that don't know, and it's at a 52-week low here. Just pulling up.
I mean, Novo Nordisk has a huge. They have a huge pipeline. If you don't know what that means in the industry, They have several drugs that are coming up. They're more novel drugs. For those of you who don't know, I like to buy I'm a biotech trader. I like to buy things that are in the pipeline that I know that they can get done, that they've gone through the trials, and they're getting closer and closer. I don't like buying things that are very, very low, but it's when you try to solve bigger problems, heart congestion failure, obesity, diabetes, things like that, right? Are they going after those? And Novo Nordisk isn't. They are going after more novel type things. I will say this much: Roche is a huge company that can handle that, and they have a good pipeline. So that's why they're making the deal for Zealand, right? They're buying it because Zealand can only produce it. They need the distribution line, and Roche has a distribution line. So for me, I think the next level of all of this is, there's a couple things going on here. The first thing, and my wife and I are watching a movie last night and a show, and with commercials, and every other commercial, every 15 minutes was some kind of prescription drug.
Absolutely is
correct. And I'm really excited about seeing RFK going after that. Stop the ads on. I will solve your toenail problem, but you may die of
you might have a heart attack. Yeah, we're going to solve that, but yeah, and then I guess that's a part of this that could be such a big deal, and why Roche is up so far. As you know, there's been some problems with muscle loss for some people on the GLPs and the concerns there. So maybe this moves them, like you mentioned. What I'm looking at more is, both of these are European companies, which is why I sort of looked at Novo and Roche, because they are both over there. And you can see it's a tale of two different stories. Like you said, Roche, who has the great distribution, has the solid pipeline, has a nice looking chart. Novo Nordisk, which while they had a lead when it came to GLP-1 in Europe, doesn't seem to be able to grasp that lead, would be my bigger takeaway, right? They should be moving in the right direction, the way that Eli is, the way that all these other companies are. Them not sets off a little bit of a red flag to me, and I'd be looking at Roche now as the big player out of Europe if you're looking for a European play in the healthcare system. That's right. That's correct. Yeah. Okay, Tick still staying positive here, about 190, 200 from there. I did have, the problem is, as you know, Steve, is when we have economic data, a lot of the stuff I printed up before 8:30 might not still be the case, but steel and aluminum were moving up nicely so far. They still are in the pre-market, but we were seeing a nice move up here across the steel industry, with the aluminum companies being the big winners so far. Alcoa up 2.47, Kalu, which is up 2.79, Kaiser Aluminum. So we're seeing a nice little move up by the aluminum companies. As I mentioned, the tech sector was really moving up nicely. SMCI, one of the big winners here today. I'm still not trusting it. It's just been too volatile for me, man. And coming from a guy who trades crypto, that's hard to believe. But I don't have the stomach for SMCI right now. How about you? We talked about this last month. We talked about it last week. I ain't touching it. I don't like SMCI. I've said that. I just can't touch it. Until they clean the issues up, I just can't. I can't touch it. Yeah, I'm with you there. So we'll see what happens as that takes off here today, if that can hold up. There were some losers here today so far. Biggest one was Pepsi, down about 2.51. I drew all kinds of stuff on there this morning. Yeah, look, I'll tell you, it's very simple. Pepsi, those companies that are, there it is. Roche buying Zealand, right? Because of weight loss drugs, and Pepsi makes sugary drinks, and they make snacks, and it's Frito-Lay that's driving them down today. I pointed that out. Like when we've talked about Coke versus Pepsi, what people have to keep in mind there is Coke is pretty much a pure play on the beverage industry. That's what they do. They do one thing, whether it be energy drinks or Coca-Cola or water like Dasani, but they are beverages. Pepsi makes a lot of their money in that Frito-Lay segment, and that segment is getting destroyed. So they're one of the big losers here today. Verizon getting hit pretty hard here today too, Steve. Down about 2.6 earlier, so still down around 2.6. So they were taking a little bit of a hit here. Commerce Secretary Lutnick just said that they're seeking to lower the temperature in talks with Canadian officials on Thursday. It's good to hear. Again, like you said, if they can continue to keep the rhetoric out of the White House, and more in the hands
But
of
he just
the
said, he said that
different.
they will add copper now to that list of between aluminum and steel. They're going to add copper to that list too.
And
So
copper
that's
now just jumped up
yeah,
1.74%
there you
on
go.
that news there. So you can see here copper just taking off, almost at a 52-week high. It hit a 52-week high here. And you and Peter Thomas talked about that a month ago, right? Copper
Yeah.
was a play. For those that don't know, copper is a big component in the plumbing of all of those homes that got destroyed, unfortunately, in the Malibu and California fires. So it is one there. Steve, we actually saw some retail winners over the last couple of days here. Stitch Fitch and Casey's. I just had a Casey's open up by me. Didn't really know what it was because it says general stores. They're really gas stations,
They're
but
gas
they're up
stations.
about 3.51% here. And I will say again, I noticed that I have a new one by me, and one of the big talks that came out of their earnings here was they are opening up, like 4% more stores than expected in 2025. So big move to the
Yes.
upside on that news.
Well, I mean, I think that the problem here is when you look at Casey's is trying to do a few things here, but Stitch Fix for me, we talked about this with Kohl's and clothing, and clothing is not being bought as fast, right? And we're seeing consumer confidence falling, and people aren't going to buy those clothing. So there you go. But Stitch Fix is a little different, right? And because of that, they narrowed their losses and they raised guidance. Now, we've talked about this. It doesn't matter if you have really great earnings. We saw NVIDIA come out with it, blew out the earnings and still slipped, right? Because of guidance. So when they changed their tune to say, hey, you know what? Things aren't nearly as bad here. Bam, there it goes, right? So again, when you're watching these guidance, when you're watching these earnings, it's all about guidance to me. It's still been good about guidance.
Absolutely is. That's been the key. Stitch Fix, their turnaround has been pretty good here for them. Their earnings, their EPS, if it will pull up for me here. Because I have it on that. They were expected to come in at about negative 11 cents on an EPS. They came in at negative 5 cents, and revenue was actually over 312 million, up about 5% versus it. And like you said, the bigger part there was they talked about their good guidance for the next quarter, and that they were seeing a rise in buying. And I do think Stitch Fix is one of those ones too, Steve, that folks like yourself that are losing weight are going to look for that better quality, custom made sort of things that Stitch Fitch provides. If those that don't know, Stitch Fitch is a shirt company basically, and you go online and they give you oh good Lord, Jim Cramer, don't scalp. Okay.
Yeah, and you're seeing Tesla slipping here now a little bit on the back of that tweet. So wow.
Yeah. Let's pull up let's take a quick look at the Mag 7 here. Let's start with NVIDIA, 108.76 here. So nice move up by NVIDIA here. And you can see we're moving up out of that liquidity zone I talked about. So that was the key for me here. It's about to break across. I still want to see it hold this 109 area. I think that's important for its recovery, get out of the liquidity zone here. But as you can see, that is an area of heavy buying. It's brought us up the last 2 days pretty nicely here. So NVIDIA looking pretty good here today. The other one, as we talked about, Tesla, we were keeping a close eye on yesterday. Tesla regained that important 238 spot here. So now that's the key, is to stay above that 238 and try to make a move towards that 265. So both of them looking pretty good here so far. Market in general looking good. Tick still positive. Advanced decline sort of maxed out at this 2750 so far. So we'll see what happens at the open. QQQ has slightly retraced here. It had hit as high as 479 here, back down around 478.65. So a little bit of a pullback here, but not much. Again, moved up on that CPI data so far. Just looking around at the news here as we get ready to open. We are 5 minutes from the open. If we take a look at the Spider Select to see what's going on across the 11 sectors, we see right now XLK is one of the big leaders, technology up 1.78%. XLY, which is consumer discretionary, up 1.62 also. So those are the two leaders. We do actually see XLV and XLU. U is utilities. XLV is the financial sector. So banks are, healthcare rather is down, and that's probably Novo Nordisk bringing that down. Well, we've seen a lot of stuff coming out of the commerce here. Lutnick, we are going to add copper, as you said. He did reiterate that they're coming April 2nd, though, huh?
Yes.
Lutnick, we will bring tariffs down if other countries do the same. So that seems to be the talk right now. So let's keep him in the news today. Let's keep the president out of it. And that could give us the impotence to move up nicely here. We'll mention that overnight, the stocks was up about 1.13% here again. So a nice move up after 4 or 5 straight down days there. Nikkei up 1.69% again, erasing some of the losses it had seen over the previous days. And the Hong Kong or Hang Seng index was down slightly, and it had been moving in the upward direction. So we're seeing a little bit of a reversal across all those, as we talked about. DXY back up above 103.50 here at 103.64. So moving to the upside to keep an eye on here. Treasury rates up a little bit too. 10-year back above 4.3 here, and 30-year above 4.6. So we have seen a pretty big move to the upside on both of those. Gold still really unable to move above the 2,900 handle without coming back down. What has been moving up nicely, Steve, is your silver trying to break back above 33 here.
Yeah, we're still going to $43 an ounce. I'm not worried about it. I'm just sitting here watching my silver go right up. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I would say it's at probably a spot here to keep an eye on it, though. If you're in a short-term scalp, we're about 3 minutes from the open here. Looks like we are ready for a little bit of a green open here for sure. Mag 7 again. We see Apple is sliding. What I don't like is we're seeing some of the slides across the Mag 7 again. The one that isn't is Tesla, now up 7.36% here. I do think we're going to see some squeeze out of this here. There was a lot of institutional money on the short side against Mr. Musk. We've been reading about it all week, right?
Yeah, and not anymore. They're squeezing the heck out of them. So I think this is a different situation here.
Yeah, and I do think it's what we could see that moves the market in the other direction, right? Is you could see a squeeze here as some players get moved out that moved and said, we're just, it's just going to keep going and going. I will tell you, Tesla is one of those ones that when it starts to cover shorts, it takes off. All you got to do is look at the gaps. It's one of those few ones that will gap in, the middle of a day.
Right.
Just trying to see here what else is coming across.
Keeping my eye on the bond market here a little bit.
Yes, I was just looking at some commodity news here from Oliver Wyman, $95 billion in profits on their commodities. We are 2 minutes away here from the open. Tick is coming back down towards neutral here, so we're going to keep an eye on the open. SPY up about 1.15%. Let me tell you what I'm looking at as my key levels here to keep an eye on. You know what? I got to take everything off the SPY because that was from back there.
Coming into this next 1 minute to go, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's turn on the machine. Advanced decline up 27.75. So wow. Okay, it's gonna be a very positive day.
Especially if we can get a nice jump up with that on the upside. Should be somewhere around 4,000 to the upside, 35 to 4 if it looks as positive it is. I'm watching about that 464 level here, 564 level, excuse me, don't want to give people a heart attack on the Qs. If we can get above that 564.20, look for a move to the upside. And what I'm watching there, as you can see, that's where we capped out here back in July and August of last year. So a move to the upside of there puts us back very bullish here. We are open. First ticks are to the downside, but the advanced decline jumped up to that 3,500 I mentioned there. So right at that 3,500 mark here. Let's get down to our short-term chart here on the Qs. This is the one I like to watch to start off our day. And we are right now opening up above VWAP here, so we'll keep an eye. VWAP again, volume weighted average price. It's a good spot to keep an eye for early momentum here in the trading day, especially right off the bat. So far, what we're seeing is it's going to try to battle that one standard deviation on the upside. So that's a good start for QQs. So far, we want to stay again above that 478.31 right now. It is struggling there to do it. 1.57% up. SPY's up about 1.09 here. Tick is pretty neutral here. And again, we're right about that 3,500.
NVIDIA is up $5.50 here. Whew. Let's go.
Here we go. Here goes NASDAQ trying to make its move here. We breaks this breakthrough.
Tesla is up 7.3% today.
Yep. Here you go. NASDAQ starting to run here. 479.92 is the key spot to get across here. But there it goes. Here we go. We got to cross that one standard deviation. Look for a move right up to that 481 pretty quickly. If you can get above that green line you see here. Tick now positive 219, 238. So continuing to move to the upside. Steve, VIX has dropped down to 25.60. If you were listening to the big man like yesterday, you are loving that. Steve, you have been saying, though, this would be the time, you take those profits quickly on this type of market, right?
Yes. Let's just we're hearing reports now that Canada said to prepare retaliatory tariffs on $30 billion of U.S. goods.
That's been part of the problem, too, Steve, is Canada just won't play nice either. Both of them just won't stop. Right. This one I would say is not all on us. This one has been a two-way fight.
There's going to be some Mexico 25.37 now in the VIX. If we get below 25, this market could just really take off here.
And here goes NASDAQ. We just broke 480 there. So if you're listening, this is the thing we're looking for. Nice move through that one standard deviation on the upside. Take a look at SPY's really jumped up here, 1.23 to the upside, trying to move. It's same thing. Both of them are trying to battle through that one standard deviation to the north. Bitcoin at 83,389 here. Its first moves have been to the downside here on the cash open. So I do think you're seeing a little bit of profit taken by the IBIT people there. So.
I could care less if they do.
No. I'm with you.
The retail have been fairly wrong.
As I mentioned, on every drop down below 80, I throw a little bit more money in my 4-year-old's college fund, which is called the Bitcoin account.
Right. Retail has been pretty wrong on crypto lately. So I like buying dips.
And Bitcoin, nice move up here off that one standard deviation. So that's a nice sign to see here. Let's take a look through NVIDIA as we're going. NVIDIA trying to break back above 115 here. So nice move up. You can see gapped up really nicely here, right back down to the level where we made the nice move up on February 3rd here. So could see a nice run out of NVIDIA here. I'd be watching it today for any move towards that 123 area. We can really catch some wins. Tesla still up 7.38 now, 742. Tesla trying to get to the daily highs here. 248.34 is the high of the day. So keep an eye there. Meta with a nice move up. Netflix, Steve, you talked about that one was below 850 the other day, that was one to keep an eye on here. Now back at 922. Right, you talked about the 5 new movies that were coming out and everything going on with Netflix there. If you've been listening to the man, he's been telling you that. Look at that move up. That's one of the biggest gappers over the last few days here.
Yeah, I agree.
Mag 7 is Netflix to the upside. Bitcoin above 83,500 now, so that's looking good here. Gold getting a little bit of love back above 2,900. Q's trying to go 2% to the upside here, broke above 480 that we talked about. You can see that 480, that resistance here on the hourly chart. I'll pull that up here, is a spot to keep an eye on. We've hit this resistance twice over the last 2 hours. Had trouble getting above it, so that's the area that I'm watching here. for another move towards 485 if we can break through it. Seeing that the CIA director and Russian counterpart speaking amid Ukraine ceasefire push. That's a good news too on that side, right, Steve?
That's right.
This is what we want to see.
I think Bitcoin could probably break 84,000 here again. If it goes there, we'll go to 85.5 in a heartbeat.
So here's another good news I'm seeing from Charlie Vallejo here. Shelter CPI has now moved down from a peak of 8.2% in March 2023 to 4.2% today, the lowest since 2021. Given its long lag versus real-time rental data, a continued move lower is expected, which should lead to a continued decline in core inflation. For those that don't know, a big part of core inflation is shelter. And a big move to the downside there would really be something that people would want to see here.
Yeah.
83,600 on Bitcoin. So it is now getting, after that initial sell-off, a move back to the upside here. QQQ 1.86. So that 481 area right now is the tough spot to get through. You can
That's
see
the high of the day, 249 again.
Nice.
Look, I bought that bottom. I bought that knife. I'd say take some profit off. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but I'm taking my profit off. I just did it a few minutes ago.
Yeah, we've talked about it. You got to be quick to take profits here. That goes for any trade you're in. So, while we were talking about a particular thing that Steve had done, we just want to point out that we've been talking here for the last month and a half. You need to be taking profits when you make a correct call like this. If you went long last night or yesterday and looking for that, this is the type of quick move where you say, hey, I'm going to be willing to take my profit and call it a win, because look at it moving. Tesla 248, trying to break that 249 level. 250 is a pretty big, significant round number that could beat it down a little bit. So that's another reason I'd be watching that there too. Taking a look at DXY here, what's happening with the dollar. Now it's continuing to move up here. So this talk today seems to have forex moving back into the king dollar here. We're seeing 103.70. Any move over that 103.78 here is going to send that up significantly. So keep an eye on DXY. It should be on all of your watch lists. Tick is going down a little bit here, negative 230. Advanced declines dropped almost 1,000 though, so we are seeing people take some profits here, like we're telling you to. It seems to be happening across the broader market, so keep an eye on that. Intel still up about 5%.
Where's our markets live? I think, man.
Yeah, Palantir up 7.53% here. Apple up 10%. Tesla, one of the big winners, up 7.39%. VST, which is Vistra, up 6.94%. Again, nuclear play there for those that don't know. Energy getting some nice run here too. CEG. It's funny how those two, it's not funny, but for those that don't know, Constellation Energy and VST. So CEG, VST, very tied together. They are working together on nuclear power plants throughout the Southeast America. So that is the area. Although I don't know if I call North Carolina Southeast. I guess it's still Mid-Atlantic, right? There, and the chip sector really catching some wind today. We can see that everything green except for STM. Every other major chip company is green here. NVIDIA up 6.7%. AVGO up 5%. Broadband TSM up 3.39%. And like we said, Intel up almost 5%. ARM up 5.38%. Micron up 6.22% here. Marvell up 5.12%. So chip sector definitely getting a nice play to the upside. Another big winner across the board in general has been the crypto stocks today that have been beaten up over the last few days. MSTR up 2.52%. Coinbase up 2.7%. Bitcoin mining companies like Mara, Coors, Riot, and CleanSpark all up over 3% here today. Big winner so far is Cipher Mining up 6.64%. They're one of the smaller companies, to be honest with you. Take a look around restaurants. You can see it's a mixed bag across restaurants right now.
250
McDonald's
on Tesla. Whew.
8.3. There you go. And again, if it breaks that 250, watch out. That will liquidate a ton of shorts because
Yeah.
I'm sure people had that round number as a spot. So if it can break, here it goes. 250. There it goes, Steve.
Yeah, it broke.
250.
I think 250 is starting to be the top here, though. I can't imagine it going higher today on this one.
Yeah, it will all be about short covering, as you know, and because it's so much zero DTEs, it like you're saying, it quickly shifts. So it could be here, but it's still going 250.25. I think people are getting caught on the wrong side here. I think people were fading the Musk. I always say don't fade the Musk, although it's been a great play for the last 3 months. Be careful.
251 here, just about.
I will say the one sector that's getting hit still today is healthcare. And outside of CVS and Cardinal Health, all the major healthcare providers are in the red today. So it is the sector getting hit the hardest. If I take a look at the Spider Select funds here, I do see energy still slightly negative. As I said, utilities is negative. Consumer staples, which was up, has gone negative here. So a big move there to the downside, and then healthcare. Big winners so far, XLY, which is consumer discretionary, and XLK, which is technology funds. Tick is still negative here. Advanced decline coming down to 2260. So we do see a little bit of profit taking continuing to come here. We have advised to do the same. Seeing the imbalance on the S&P, 245.1 million to the upside, but NASDAQ 100 now negative 25.6 million to the downside. So seeing a little bit of movement there.
So my eyes are off of Tesla now for the day. I'm back to NVIDIA again, which is now up almost $8.
Yep, absolutely. Tesla is crushing it. Okay, we see tick going slightly positive here. Advanced decline at 23.96. VIX is sticking at this 25.34, like you said, Steve. I think if we can see a drop below that 25, especially 24.82, you got some serious downside that it could do and give wings to the market to fly. We are up 1.85 here, and Qs is nicely remaining above both the VWAP and that one standard deviation to the upside. SPY has lost a little bit here, down up only 1% here, and it dropped down below the VWAP. So SPY is getting hit pretty hard here right now, less than 1% to the upside. And we are seeing this is where zero DTEs can turn on it. Let's see what happens here across the SPY. Dow is pretty flat on the day, only up 5 basis points, now only 3 basis points, and threatening to go negative. So the Dow is continuing to get hit here. Q is getting hit a little bit here too, a threat to go back below 480. So we are seeing a little bit of a sell-off here after the first 15 minutes of the day so far. Bitcoin 83,700, excuse me. So it's continuing to rise here this morning so far. Gold sitting right around that 29.11. It's been moving sideways for the last 15 minutes or so. Not really a big move one way or the other. Nice move up by ASTS2, the satellite company, AST Space Mobile, up 4.47% here. We are starting to see some more red flip in here. I see Best Buy down 2%, Brown-Forman down 3.94%. They had a few good days in a row here, so they've definitely pulled back after their good earnings had people buying in there. Baidu down 2.02%. Berkshire down 1.4% here, Steve, today. That's a little surprising.
Yeah, they made a mistake. They didn't buy. I mean, that's what happens, right? People are moving their money out of Berkshire Hathaway because they were going defensive, and all of a sudden now we realize the cash is not the place to be. But I will say that, for me, he's going whale hunting, as we call it. So prepare for that, right? It's what's going to happen. He's going whale hunting, and he's going to look for a company to buy. Yeah. I have been close
Pull
to
back towards 485 is what I'd be looking at here. Berkshire would get interested in that level to me. You know, was as high as 520. You can see here on the daily chart, you got a pretty good spot right here. You can see it's where the wick ended on its first run up in September. It's where it wicked right back down to in November. So I'd be looking at that as a nice level of support here. And you can see, when you're out of that trade is you'd be out of it. Anything below that 478 area.
Bank of Canada has just cut their key rate by 25 basis points to 2.75%. That was what we were expecting, but they just cut that rate. Yeah.
Hopefully we follow, right? As we know, Mr. Flanagan is not with us today. Had a little dentist appointment he had to go to, but he's been telling us to keep an eye on that and that we would see that drop there. Let's see what that's doing to the
Bank of Canada's Macklem now says they will proceed carefully with any further rate changes. Macklem's now ending 2024 on a solid footing, but says they now face a new crisis, economic hit with severe tariffs because of United States.
And like we said, how money moves first. Take a look at the wick here on the loonie that come down right with that news here. You can see it dropped down from 144. It was right at 144.2. And in a matter of 2 minutes, we're at under 144.
Right.
And down below went right through that liquidity zone. So you can see money does move first, like we talk about. That it has it. Let's see if that's got anything going on. It does have our 10-year moving down too. So expectation there is that moves us or moves our Fed to make the same decision here sooner than later. So it does have our U.S. Treasuries both moving to the downside there. So we want to see that. Bitcoin 83.5 can't break above 84 yet so far. Mag 7, let's take a look here. Nvidia back above 115 here, back above 115, 115.69, up 6.4% on the day. Apple's the one that hasn't been able to get any love. We know yesterday reports came out that they're struggling with their new iPhone, as you called it, Apple unintelligent. Has not really got anybody really motivated to buy the new phone.
Right. I mean, it was big news. Oh, Apple Intelligence. And when it comes down to it, I mean, I am an AI guy. I've been talking about AI for 15 years, right? So it's like, no, you're not. It's not really the AI. It's a little different. So, but I do think they will catch up. So I'm not going to give them too much hard stuff. But I will tell you the one thing that Apple is doing, and that is innovating. They're saying their new OS is coming out here into 2025. That to me is a big deal. I might actually switch. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I personally, as you know, I'm a fan of Apple more than you are as a general, thing. I'm an adopter of Apple stuff. I do think they are still the sleeping giant here in the Mag 7 that's just sort of, sitting in a nice spot for a longer term play here if the market is going to continue to move to the upside for sure. Microsoft just went down a little bit here, down about 8 percentage points, 8 basis points here, drop below support again. So Microsoft's another one that hasn't been able to make its move to the upside. The one that's holding up nicely so far, up almost 8% here, is Tesla, but we are seeing more slippage across the board here. The advanced declines come back below 2,000, and we're seeing the tick at a negative almost 500. So it's, I do think we're seeing some profit taking come in for sure. As we get towards the 10 o'clock hour here, most of the news really Bank of Canada right now. Tick minus 550 here. Advanced decline down to 1,700. So again, like we were saying, take those profits when they're there because they do turn pretty quickly here in this market. If we look at the leaders this morning, Intel holding up nicely, actually. Intel's holding up really well versus a lot of the others. Even that's pulling back a little bit as we speak. Palantir, you can see the pullback on Palantir here in the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. It has been pretty swift. Same thing, App 11 was up almost 9%. You can see that pullback here. So again, that's why we're saying don't be afraid to lock in profit. Same thing, Tesla now pulling back. So we're seeing a wide market pullback here. All of the early morning leaders are starting to get bought off or sold off, excuse me.
I'm not too concerned about this. Like I took some profit here. I like that. That's this nice big run. It was good. But I don't think there's anything changed here. My theses are all the same, and I think we go higher. So I'm not too worried about it.
Getting back towards the neutral a little bit here. Gold at 29.15. So gold picking up a little bit. Bitcoin at 83,194, moving to the downside a little bit. Do see a firm up 7.72% here again. So one of those volatility pumpers seems to have found a bottom there. It's 200-day MA moving back up.
Silver and gold right back up 29.16 there on gold.
So again, see most of the Chinese names getting hit today. Baba down 1.32%. Baidu down 2.57%. JD down 1.72%. Neo, the only one sort of holding up there. I didn't notice PDD also. What's they doing? PDD is holding up pretty well. Timu.
Okay. Representative Jason Crow and Lauren Boebert have introduced bipartisan legislation to establish a space national guard.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't really know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know what the Coast Guard
Marines does. up to the moon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, growing up on the shores, I know what the Coast Guard does. I'm not sure how the Space Guard is what it's gonna do. But hey, take negative 250 here. We are seeing advanced decline continuing to tick down. Qs had been up 2% earlier today, now only up 1.5%. SPY has nicely picked back up, though, is up 77 basis points after dropping down here to a low of 559, back above 560 here. So we are starting to see some buyers here start to pull back into the market. I would say my biggest problem, Steve, is we're not seeing enough news from companies. All the news is government related right now, right?
Yeah, correct. And that's what I'm talking about. I want to see some innovation somewhere, right?
Yeah, and what we're not seeing is it's CNBC. Everybody that's on has been a politician again. It's not been, let's get on, Jensen. Let's get on some of these folks that are innovating in the different things, the CEOs, the people that are doing stuff, the Stephen Orrs of the world, and let's let them talk as opposed to listen to our politicians.
Oh, here reports now that Putin is likely to eventually agree to truce, but with his own terms. What he says.
Oh yeah, so no. Yeah, exactly. I see that. Yeah.
Look, okay, so he's saying that it's going to be my terms. We already knew that already, right? We already knew that he's going to probably, yeah. I think that's actually positive, though, that he's now sitting and saying that, okay, I got some land from Ukraine, and how do I work this out and save face, and let's get it done, right? I think that's what he's saying. There you go. There's NVIDIA at 116 again. So I kind of like this headline here. Do we believe him?
Yeah, that's right. You saw my hesitation. I wasn't jumping in on that one. Nice try. I'm like, yeah.
I will say that I like the headline. It's a lot better than screw you, right?
And now we're seeing Canada put tariffs on U.S. steel and aluminum in new measures. So there, again, the news isn't only out of the White House here. It's coming hot and heavy out of Europe, hot and heavy out of Canada. So that's part of the problems we're seeing right now. That's why, again, Steve has been banging on the desk that you take profits when things go up or down, and be quick and nimble and keep your head on a swivel because things turn fairly quickly. Tick negative 326 here, advanced decline that was at 3,500, now at 1,600. And, again, QQQ up 1.4%, but it was up 2% earlier.
But I'm not
up 7.
Okay, so now we're hearing that the Fed will now cut interest rates in July versus June. All right. All right, whatever. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
The Fed's always behind the eight ball, and lately, so I can't answer that question too well. But um, look, to me, that's the VIX right now, 25.85. We're still not. If it drops again below 25, we could see another run. But it looks like the CPI data was cooling off and inflation was cooling off, and now it's back to tariffs again. So it's now back. Now I'm just waiting on a Trump tweet, right?
right. And it already is. So I see in the Wall Street Journal just came out, Trump is furious that Canada won't take his tariffs lying down. So I assume that means he's about to start getting on to his phone here. Also seeing a little bit more breakdown on the Putin conversation. Putin looks for a way to agree to truce terms with his own conditions. According to several people familiar with the situation, President Putin is likely trying to extend the timeline for agreeing to any such cessation of hostilities in order to secure the best possible terms from Moscow. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. While the Russian leader is likely to agree to eventual truce terms with the Ukraine, he wants to ensure that his own conditions are included first, according to a source familiar with the Kremlin's thinking. Russian officials did not discuss with their U.S. counterparts the specific agreement reached by the Ukrainian delegation in the Saudi Arabian city.
Morgan Stanley just cut Apple's target price to 252 from 275.
That should have Apple down 252. I mean, it's still trading at 222. Let's point that out. Actually, doesn't seem like anyone cares about what Morgan Stanley stands so far, but here we go. Let's see. That news will start to hit everybody else soon here. Keep an eye on that at 221 right now.
We're seeing Bitcoin dropping about 1,000 points here. 2,000 points. Sorry. It was right around 84,000 earlier today, and it's 82.5 now, 82.4. Still dropping 82.3.
Yep, definitely seeing some sell-off there for sure. 82.4. Trying to find a little bit of a home there, but not doing so well. VIX back above 26. So again, these tweets seem to move the market here. See, and also the EU is firing back with 28 billion in reciprocal duties on due to the shipments of steel and aluminum. So again, it does look like the world is pretty much reacting the same way, and everybody's saying, you want to add tariffs, we'll add tariffs. Nobody wins in that situation, right?
Right.
Okay, we are about 3 minutes from 10 o'clock. I do want to point out we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to have a video on between 10 and 10:30, and then I am back with an options specialist, one of Steve's really good friends, Anne-Marie Byland. Steve, and then I have Charlie Moon to talk about the Mag 7, what he likes, what he doesn't like in the Mag 7 there, and also how he's personally trading these Trump tweets. Charlie is someone who's normally a swing trader for Prosper Trading Academy. So I'm curious as to how he's trading differently today and everything going on. Steve, you think it sounds like you think we're finishing up today pretty well. What do you got for us on the last?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to be on Money Mitch today at the same time. So there's a lot going on here. I'm not too scared. I think the markets are fine. We'll just keep going, right? I'm not too worried about this. I will say this much. I do expect Trump to tweet something today at some point, and I think the market's trying to front run that tweet a little bit, right? I don't see that to be an issue today. I think the question on the markets is one thing and one thing only right now. It's tariffs, and it's what we don't want to see that, because we know what tariffs do. Tariffs brings a recession, so nobody wants that. It just brings in more inflation. It brings in all kinds of bad stuff. So we don't really want to see that. And I think that's what the markets are looking at. But I'm keeping my eye on the VIX, and the VIX right now is not telling me anything just yet. It can't get back above the 26 handle. So if we can get it right back below 25 again, I think this market runs again today at some point. I think
I would say that what I'm looking at here, Steve, is the difference is, let's see, we need one of these two things to break the linear regression. We either need VIX to break it to the downside to see what we want to see, or we need the Qs to break to the upside here. And both are right at that spot. So you could see either of those make that break. If we see that break, I think it's going to be an explosive move to the upside.
Agreed.
Okay, everybody, we will see you back at 10:30. Thanks for joining us. And then keep in mind, after those two interviews, I am back with Agnieszka Wood at noon with our trading mindset coach, going over everything there. At 1 o'clock, we do have Market Minds on today. They are still on Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And then after that, I have Crypto Burb from Europe straight with the latest breakdown of Bitcoin and the alts. So we do have a big day planned all the way through about 5 o'clock today, everybody. See you tomorrow morning.